Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Ruth Cabral, sitting in for Pinky Webb. Today on the program, Metro Manila mayors discuss a possible shift to general community quarantine. But are we ready for the threat of another surge in COVID-19 cases due to the double mutant variant first detected in India? Also, concerns are growing over the national government's slow vaccine rollout. San Juan Mayor Francis Zamora and health reform advocate Dr. Tony Leachon join us live. No word yet if Metro Manila mayors have approved the proposed shift to general community quarantine. New community quarantine rules are set to be enforced this Saturday, May 15th. This comes as the country records its first two cases of the highly transmissible double mutant variant first detected in India. Let's go straight to the source of the story, San Juan Mayor Francis Zamora. Good morning, Mayor, and thank you for joining us. So, can you tell us, you had a meeting with the Metro Manila mayors last night. What was the consensus? Are we ready to shift to GCQ?
First of all, good morning, Ruth, and thank you for having me on CNN. Yes, last night we had a meeting with the Metro Manila Council, and present were our IATF secretaries, and the DOH and the NED both made presentations for the appreciation of the mayors. So our current medical and health status, also the economic impact of the ECQ and ECQ on our country. So all of these data were presented, and by the end of the meeting, we were all asked to vote. So I personally voted for a GCQ because the discussions last night were really how to have a GCQ that is strict in nature, because there were GCQs before that had additional allowances, meaning in terms of allowable businesses and industries, which made it a not so strict GCQ. So I believe the IATF will somehow figure out which industries and businesses can indeed open under GCQ without really compromising our health capacity.
Mayor, you said that you voted for GCQ, the more lenient GCQ. Now, how about the other mayors? Was it a majority vote? Was there a consensus?
I'm sorry, Ruth. I don't want to be the one to preempt anything, but I'm aware that the IATF will be meeting today, and the MMDA chairman, Chairman Ben Abalos, will be submitting the Metro Manila Council recommendations. But as far as I'm concerned, the way it was presented last night was it will be, if ever we do a GCQ, it can be somewhat a very strict kind, wherein the real GCQ or the original GCQ we had before can be followed. Because if you remember, there was a time when, yes, we were under GCQ, but additional establishments were allowed to open, thus further relaxing the economy. So right now, we are seeing a very, very sharp decline in the active cases. In fact, here in San Juan, if I may just share my data, from 1,296 last April 12, we're down to just 280. And this is really the effect of the ECQ and the MECQ. So now that the overall hospital utilization rate in Metro Manila is improving, and the active cases of all Metro Manila cities are improving, I believe that it's time to again open the economy, but not at a rate that will possibly cause another surge.
Kasi Mayor, before you had the meeting last night, one of the mayors and several others already expressed yung vote nila, no, na they favor GCQ. Even one mayor said na there's a consensus already, no, dun sa mas mababa or mas less strict na quarantine, no. So can you tell us if there was a unanimous, at least if there was a unanimous decision?
Well, Ruth, again, I don't want to preempt any announcement. So if you don't mind, I'll just share my sentiments. No? But with the data that I saw last night, no, it made me decide to vote for GCQ. I have been very consistent in being very conservative in terms of opening the economy because kami rin mayors ang nahihirapan sa totoo lang. No? Kapag talagang tumataas yung cases, it's very, very difficult to pull down the number of cases. And once you have an ECQ or MECQ, of course, the economic impact is very heavy. Buti na lang nga, yung itong nakaraang ECQ ayuda talaga nakatulong sa San Juan. But of course, we will eventually run out of all of these ayudas and we will really have to rely on the reopening of the economy. Now, when I say reopening, we will rely on the safe reopening of the economy. That's why we want to do it gradually. If you remember, from MECQ, we went to MECQ Flex, somewhat in the middle of MECQ and GCQ. So now that we are moving one step forward again, if ever indeed we shift to GCQ, then we really just have to implement all minimum health standards and not rush opening up too much. No? Wag masyadong magmamadali kasi baka mag-surge na naman.
Pero Mayor, why did you vote for GCQ considering now we have cases now of the India variant, no? And then when you say you voted for GCQ, but a strict one, what does that mean?
Okay, first question. Itong Indian variant, yes, it's now in the Philippines. But similar to what happened when the three other variants entered, yung UK, the South African, and Brazilian. Of course, lahat yan, yung minimum health standards pa rin ang magiging safeguard natin. And we really have to have stricter border control in terms of people arriving from other countries. Kasi lahat naman ito nanggagaling from foreign land. So I believe we really just have to be stricter in terms of monitoring everyone who arrives from other countries. Next, itong GCQ, the strict GCQ, what I mean is, kung ano lang talaga yung sasabihin, ito munang industries, ito munang activities, yun lang muna. Kasi minsan nagiging hybrid siya, di ba? The more you make it hybrid, the more you add certain relaxations in terms of allowable activities, the more dumadami talaga yung tao. So dapat doon pa rin tayo sa essential work, essential businesses, no? Para lang hindi magsabay-sabay. And then once we see na nagsastabilize yung numbers, then we can further reopen. Because remember, Ruth, no? During last Christmas, just for your information, hindi naman tumaas yung active cases natin kahit na everyone was out, maraming pumupunta sa malls, no? Because Christmas season, hindi naman natin naramdaman yung surge. That means we can really handle a GCQ that is safe or relatively safer. No? Nagkataon lang nitong March nagkaroon tayo ng surge because of these variants which eventually na-halt natin. In fact, naibaba na nga natin ngayon. So as long as we adhere to all minimum health standards, if we follow the rules, if we stay disciplined, kaya naman natin i-sustain yan.
Pero like for example, you were talking about border control with other countries, Mayor, but for example, NCR Plus, mawawala na ba yung border? Can people go in and out of NCR Plus? Kasi sa GCQ, di ba, pinapayagan na yung parang mas free yung movement. Also, may curfew po ba? And then what kind of industries will be reopening now?
Okay, Ruth, all of these questions at this point, I believe it will be the IATF that will really, finalize everything. Even yung mga questions mo, karamihan sa mga mayors, tinatanong din yan kagabi. No? So, whatever we discussed naman last night, purely recommendatory lang kami. IATF will still make the final decision. So kung ano yung magiging wisdom nila, kami naman mayors na we follow. Ako personally here in San Juan, kung ano yung mga protocols na binababa ng IATF, sumusunod tayo. So we defer to their wisdom, kung ano sabihin nilang changes na gagawin for as long as we see and we feel na talagang it's for the good of our people. Of course, susunod naman kami.
And you gave us an update kanina na you have a better situation now in San Juan, but in terms of like yung health system, yung hospitals, how are you doing?
Ruth, when I say we're doing better in San Juan, I always base my statements on numbers. So I'll share with you. I'm holding some data with me. Our San Juan Medical Center is just down to 48% in terms of occupancy. Our quarantine facilities are down to an average of just 30% occupancy now. So nakikita natin talagang bumababa yung occupancy rate natin. And nagmamatch naman ito dito sa number of active cases, which is now down to just 280. Also, Ruth, it helps na we have already vaccinated 13,641 San Juaneños in our city. So every day, nag-vaccinate tayo. In fact, 11,700 doses of Pfizer vaccines arrived 2 nights ago. That's why we rolled out yesterday our Pfizer vaccines. Ito, 12,260 AstraZeneca vaccines and 10,674 Sinovac vaccines. So we are now increasing our vaccination to 1,500 up to 2,000 a day dahil meron na tayong supply. Hindi namin ito magawa dati because wala kaming supply. So ito na yung nararamdaman nating dumarating ng supply. Ito naman yung pinangako ng IATF. So as we vaccinate thousands of people a day, that means mas maraming napoproteksyonan araw-araw.
But overall, Mayor, do you think the vaccine rollout in general is good? Or kasi si Manila Mayor Isko Moreno was saying it's super slow. Dyan po sa inyo.
Well, ito, out of our target population to be vaccinated na 85,400, we are now at the 13,000 level. And we were just vaccinating 600 to 800 people a day prior to last week. Because nga, konti lang talaga ang supply. Pero dahil may supply na tayo, nag-extend na rin kami ng vaccination hours, nagdagdag na uli kami ng manpower. So we are now maximizing our main venue, which is the Phil Oil Flying V Center. It's a 4,000-seater indoor stadium. And given the facility at saka yung logistical preparations natin, kaya natin up to 2,000 a day in just this venue. And once our 100,000 doses of AstraZeneca, which we procured as a city, once they arrive, we can actually go up to 3,000 a day, possibly in 2 or 3 sites.
When will yung locally procured AstraZeneca, when will it arrive? And do you think, you were saying na you can speed it up? Do you have enough manpower? And aside from yung sinasabi niyong facility which can hold a lot of vaccinations, will that be enough pagdating ng order niyo po?
Yes, actually, sa lahat ng LGUs na nag-order, wala pang dumarating talaga. So yung mga vaccines na ginagamit ng LGUs ngayon, lahat yan ay from the national government allocation. We were informed that by July, darating na yung mga pre-procure ng mga LGUs. And all of these vaccines that the LGUs procured, plus the allocation from the national government, which according to Secretary Galvez and the IATF members, will reach millions and millions of doses starting in the coming weeks. Itong May, June, July, ito nga, nararamdaman na natin yung unti-unting pagdating ng mga vaccines natin. So ako naintindihan ko naman yung worldwide global supply issue. Siyempre, lahat ng mga countries nakikipagkompetensya sa isa't isa for the supplies. But ngayon, since we are experiencing an increase in the volume of vaccines on hand, nakakapag-increase na rin kami ng bilang ng vaccinate on a daily basis. And given that San Juan is not too big a city compared to other cities, kaya nating tapusin to in just a few weeks for as long as very steady ang supply ng vaccines na dumarating sa atin.
And then your assessment na lang, huli na lang, Mayor, your assessment in terms of yung sentiment ng mga taga San Juan po about vaccination. Tingin nyo, did it increase since the first time since we started out the rollout?
Yes, definitely the trust level has increased. That is why we are also experiencing a very huge increase in the number of registrants in our online vaccination registration. Lagpas 60,000 na ang San Juaneños na nag-register. In fact, during the start, we were really on the ground. As in, ako sumasama ako sa house-to-house campaigns, nag-educate sa mga constituents natin about the vaccine because a lot of misinformation was going around. But yung word of mouth is still the most powerful tool. Nung nakita nila na yung mga magulang nila, halimbawa yung mga lolo at lola, mga kamag-anak, when our constituents saw that after getting vaccinated, wala naman talagang adverse side effects, hindi naman totoo yung mga nababasa nilang fake news, tumataas yung vaccine confidence. And especially also when our medical frontliners got vaccinated. These are doctors, nurses, sila yung in the know in terms of medicine and vaccines. The fact na sila nagpa-vaccinate, increases the confidence of people. Even when I had my first dose close to a month ago, it was also my way of showing our constituents na wala kayong dapat katakutan. Because ako mismo nagpabakuna at wala nga ako naramdaman kahit anong side effect.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, San Juan City Mayor Francis Zamora. Millions of vaccines could go to waste amid the slow vaccine rollout by the government. Health reform advocate Dr. Tony Leachon tells us more after the break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, health reform advocate and former National Task Force Against COVID-19 advisor, Dr. Tony Leachon. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Leachon. Let's start with the India variant. We already have 2 confirmed cases in the country. What can we do about this? Did the government act too late in, controlling the borders?
Well, I think they're doing right now testings and, of course, contact tracings. And the Department of Health referred those cases to the Philippine Genomic Surveillance Studies. I'd like to ask, of course, an update on, because there are 2 cases here, one in mid-April, the Filipinos who came from Oman and UAE, and there's another one who came from a vessel which came from India, and then passed by Vietnam, and then the Vietnam people did not allow the Filipino guys, but they tested, and 2 out of that particular 12 out of the 20 patients were positive, 2 were critical, and they were allowed to disembark in Sangli Point, and they were taken to an undisclosed hospital. That's what I was trying to follow up, because it is important that we have a contact traces and put a closure on the Indian variant, so that we can confidently, of course, sleep at night, and then just in case there will be loosening of the quarantine, then we will not have a problem in terms of contagiousness or transmissibility of this particular virus.
Yun nga, Doctor, so we still don't have information about what you were talking about. I've also read reports about that, yung vessel with 2 Filipinos who were said to be critical, no? So we have to wait for an update from the DOH about it. But right now, ano po ba ang pwede nating gawin with the India variant na sinasabi nila double mutant and more transmissible or more infectious?
Well, ang pwede nating gawin is to practice pa rin yung minimum standards and health protocol. But one thing that I'd like to share to everyone is that the AstraZeneca vaccine can address the Indian variant based on studies. There are 4 vaccines that can actually be important in trying to curb the virus, particularly the Indian variant. One is the mRNA, and there are 2 mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna. One is Astra, and the 4th one is Bharat. So if we're trying to use the vaccines right now, the one that will be expiring in June and July, this is an important opportunity that, aside from using this to our A1, A2, and A3, this is also an opportunity for us to use this just in case there will be increased transmission of the Indian variant. So I would say a crisis turning into an opportunity based on the reports.
You mentioned about the AstraZeneca vaccines. You earlier expressed concern na baka mamaya ay hindi siya mai-vaccinate because may mag-expire na ng June 30 and July 31. Can you tell us more about that, Doctor?
Well, at the present rate we are doing, there are 514,655 fully vaccinated, which is about 0.47 of the 110 million population. And we're doing, at this point, 67,780 vaccinations. Now, in order to reach this phase, para do sa 70 million, we will have to wait for 5.6 years to herd immunity. Ang ibig ko sabihin, Ruth, kasi doon sa 67,000 natin, medyo mabagal yan in order to use the herd, to reach the herd immunity. Now, kung gusto nating i-cover yon ng mabilisan to reach the December 2021 na herd immunity, we need to vaccinate 590,000 daily to reach the herd immunity. But at the rate we're going na 60, medyo mabagal yon. But according to Secretary Duque, they will use the Sinovac, they will use the AstraZeneca 1.5 million dose for 1 million that will be expiring in June for the first dose, and then 0.5 million that will be expiring in July for the second dose. But their average would be double than the usual natin. Ang average kasi natin is 60,000 per day. And they are coordinating with the MMDA Chair, Benher Abalos, that will be doing 120,000 per day. So I'm quite, of course, not comfortable considering magdo-double kagad tayo nito in about, in about less than 2 months. That's the problem natin. Now, ang problem din natin, Ruth, dumating kasi ito ang WHO may pre-requirement kasi dapat at 3 to 6 months before you deliver it. Ang question ko lang in my mind, whether the WHO and the Department of Health were transparent enough to say na mag-expire yung AstraZeneca ng June or July. Kasi we were jubilant when nag-arrive siya nung May 8. And then suddenly sinabi na the 2 million doses, 1.5 sa June mag-expire and the other one would expire in July. So sabi ko, that will very, very difficult considering our average right now is 60,000 per day. So we just hope that with this new projections of 120,000 inoculations per day, we'll be able to vaccinate out of the COVAX facilities kasi ito for the A1, A2, and A3. Well, I was just thinking that kung walang sisipot kasi ang vaccine hesitancy natin ay napakataas, then we can actually tap the private sector. Pero according to them, they can only use the COVAX facility for the A1, A2, A3. So kailangan masagutan lang natin, Ruth, whether yung mga pasyenteng darating do sa vaccination, talagang tatanggapin yun. Kasi this would be a way, sayang. Sayang ito at napakarami. At this can really help Filipinos, particularly the elderly population.
So what you earlier proposed is for the private sector to come in, and sinabi nga nila they can start inoculating yung mga A4, 'di ba? Yung mga economic frontliners. So medyo mukhang hindi na mangyayari yon if ever. I mean, that's one of your proposals earlier.
Ang suggestion ko lang kung mamarapatin lang nila, kung nakikita nila na slow yung turnout natin. Kasi in the Twitter din, according to Senator Gatchalian, in their locality, mga 30% daw ng turnout nila sa senior citizen hindi dumadating. So dapat meron tayong contingency measure for those people who would not show up. Kailangan meron tayo kasi alam naman natin sa corporate world, maraming gusto magpabakuna pero wala silang chance na magawa to. If they will be I think they need to think about it kasi yung turnout and then the substitution list, kailangan clear din yun.
How about setting up additional sites, even yung run by the national government? They're proposing the mega vaccination site in Nayong Pilipino, kaya lang medyo nagkaka-problema din dyan. Is that a good move, if ever?
I'm against it, Ruth, kasi in the best countries of the world, they used actually small vaccination sites, mga drive-through, and they're using large pharmacies, malls, with few patients going there para wala kang traffic. Let's say right now we have 3,800 vaccination sites. Kung ma-increase natin, let's say sa 5,000, and let's say copying what in the US doing, sa Walmart and CVS sila ginagawa, and then dun mo gagawin, rather than in, let's say in the Nayong Pilipino, magkakaroon ka ng bottleneck as you enter, and that may be a trigger for a super spreader event. What I'm seeing in countries like Israel, UK, and USA, ang ginawa nila rather than mega centers, they created multiple small vaccination centers para doon mabilis and at the same time, wala kang super spreader events.
So you would prefer, sir, the smaller vaccination sites, maybe in LGUs. But in a general sense, sir, doctor, saan niyo po ba nakikita yung problema in terms of yung what Mayor Isko Moreno was saying, very slow rollout of vaccinations?
Ang nakikita kong problema is the lack of a vaccine launch team. I think if Secretary Galvez would be helped by the private sector in terms, kailangan meron kasing composite team composed of a experienced and competent guys in clinical regulatory, logistics distribution, at saka supply chain management as a massive awareness campaign. Kasi ang problem ko dito will not be the supply anymore. Kasi UK, flatten the curve nila, and then USA. That's the reason why we have these vaccines coming from the UK, from the COVAX. Because by July, magkakaroon na ng herd immunity ang US. Ang nakikita ko dito, more of the vaccine administration, manpower, and vaccine hesitancy. So therefore, ang kailangan dito is a complete team that will be coming from the private sector that will help Secretary Galvez to execute and implement so that we can reach our target quickly, reach the herd immunity the soonest time possible, and of course, reopen the economy. And then siguro, ang napansin ko lang, Ruth, no, kinalat pala nila yung mga bakuna all over the Philippines. Sana, it would be best sana in the business epicenter at saka yung center of the contagion, which is in the national capital region. I would liken it sana to Israel, na 10 million ang population ng Israel, and right now, no mask anymore. They've opened the schools, universities, and business establishments with 60% of the population vaccinated. We have 12 million population in the NCR. Just 50% of that would be 6 million. I think that would be, something that can be achievable, so that kung dun ipo-focus natin yung vaccines natin, the Astra, the Sinovac, and all of these vaccines na nandito, then perhaps we can reopen the economy rather than dilute it by distributing it to the other peripheral areas of the country.
Okay. Thank you very much to health reform advocate and former National Task Force Against COVID-19 advisor, Dr. Tony Leachon. And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ruth Cabral. You're watching CNN Philippines.